Feel it. Wake up to today's quest with Annie on Today 95.1 FM from 6 to 11 a.m. weekdays. Fantastic.
It's 22 minutes after 8. 1,000 apologies. We're starting this behind schedule. And so we just want to quickly get started with it so that we utilize the most of the time that we have remaining. Welcome to the show. It's the newspaper review segment. And we already do have parts of the story, if not all the stories that we'll be using for the newspaper review are on our Facebook site, our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/today95.1fm. If you're already on Facebook, simply search for Today 95.1 FM. Do like that page, and you can share us your thoughts too with any of the headlines on that page. So let's get to it. One of the very first stories on that site, as you will see on our page, I beg your pardon, is the WTO ignoring Egypt and accepting the nomination of Okonjo-Iweala. That's a story from This Day newspaper. WTO ignores Egypt, accepts Okonjo-Iweala's nomination as DG. That story is in This Day newspaper. Also in This Day newspaper, we have federal government to exclude salaries of IPPIS non-compliant workers. Federal government to exclude salaries of IPPIS non-compliant workers. And then Nigeria records highest daily spike of 663 COVID-19 cases. Nigeria records highest daily spike of 663 COVID-19 cases. 8 months after Buhari yet to send Supreme Court justices nominees for Senate. 8 months after Buhari yet to send Supreme Court justice, protests in Katsina as bandits came to 8.30 trillion in first quarter. This day newspaper has a caption here reading, examining Buhari's scorecard. Examining Buhari's scorecard. Protecting children from sexual assault amidst schools closure. Protecting children from sexual assault amidst schools closure. That's another story in This Day newspaper. And then we've got 1.6 million farmers this year to be financed by the CBN. CBN to finance 1.6 million farmers this year. Airports reopening, Lawan protests and others protest Northeast's exclusion. Airports reopening, Lawan, others protest Northeast's exclusions. Southern leaders ask federal government to close Nigerian borders to illegal herdsmen. Reps ask federal government to close Nigerian borders to illegal herdsmen. Yesterday said it had received the nomination of Nigeria's former minister. According to analysts, the former minister is widely regarded as a front runner in the leadership race at WTO. Giving statements by local and international experts and analysis by influential media platforms. The Geneva-based global trade body, in a 3-paragraph statement on its website yesterday, said Nigeria nominates Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala for post of WTO Director General. Nigeria on the 9th of June 2020 nominated Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala for the post of WTO Director General to succeed the current Director General, Mr. Roberto Azevedo, who has announced that he will step down on the 31st of August 2020. According to the timetable announced by the chair of the General Council, Dr. Walker, the nomination period will close on the 8th of July 2020. Shortly after the nomination period candidates will be invited to meet with members at a special General Council meeting, present their views and take questions from the membership. On the same day, WTO added that Egypt, which is opposed to Okonjo-Iweala's nomination, has nominated Mr. Abdelhamid Mahmoudou for the same position. Egypt had opposed the nomination of Okonjo-Iweala on the ground that it was belated. The Northern African country told members of the African Union that her nomination should not be recognized. In a letter to the African Union member states, Egypt had contended that her nomination was out of time and therefore breached the rules of nomination, which in part, they said, was that Nigeria no longer had a candidate for the position. It said AU member states had been required to nominate candidates for the Director General position by November 30th, 2019. Over 5 months ago, while the request to substitute Eunuch Frederick Aga was made in June 4th, 2020. Mexico had on Monday nominated Mr. Jesus Siadi Kuri for the same position. President Muhammadu Buhari last week had approved Okonjo-Iweala's nomination and withdrew the candidacy of Aga, Nigeria's permanent representative to the WTO, for the same position. So pretty much it's regardless what Egypt said to the AU and said, look, we have sent our nomination beyond schedule. We're supposed to have done that before 30th of November. And if we want to substitute Aga for Okonjo-Iweala for Aga now, it was too late and the AU shouldn't give any sort of support. This piece is saying, well, regardless what Egypt thinks, the World Bank organization itself, the World Trade Organization itself has accepted the nomination of Okonjo-Iweala. Mano, good morning.
Good morning, Annie. Good morning, Nigeria.
Let's have your thoughts on this.
I think one's work will speak for one, and that's the truth. Egypt, well, protocol may have been breached, perhaps unwittingly, by nominating Okonjo-Iweala at the latest hour. But now the World Trade Organization, according to the piece, is saying that they are not thinking along that line. So one's work is certainly what is to fight and what is fighting for one. So if Okonjo-Iweala certainly will go to that particular drilling and then succeeds, nobody stands in her way.
All right. Thank you. Fineface Number Fineface, environmental justice activist and an executive director, Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center. Good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning, Annie. Good morning, Rivers people.
All right. What are your thoughts with this?
Well, I don't know. Egypt seems to be the only country speaking against the nomination of the Nigerian strong woman. And whatever it is, I know quite well that there are guidelines that were in place. And if ever the guidelines were breached, the organization itself would not have accepted and announced to have received the nomination of that woman. So in as much as I value the fact that if issues are raised, it should be investigated to make sure that no protocols were breached. I think the organization coming forward now to say that this woman's nomination had been received, it means that all those protocols and issues that Egypt is raising were not breached.
All right, then. Obitima, journalist and international affairs analyst. Good morning.
Good morning, Annie.
Great to have you. Let's hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I think the point there is that already Nigeria had a nominee. Before now, Okonjo-Iweala coming is just to replace. Nigeria had to withdraw that nominee and replace with Okonjo-Iweala. I don't know whether there's anything in the statute of WTO to not to replace somebody from a country that already made a nomination. And no other country has raised eyebrow on this line. So I want to assume that there's nothing, that Nigeria has done that is contrary to the statute of WTO. Then Egypt, yes, maybe they have in mind that because their candidate have been around WTO for quite a long time. In fact, it's a trade person. Okonjo-Iweala.
But Aga too is also
but
trade person.
Nigeria had to withdraw.
Aga and
Okonjo-Iweala. Yes. So, and Okonjo-Iweala has a subtle backing of America. And it will be difficult for the candidate from Egypt to say true. But whatever it is, I think Okonjo-Iweala is from the financial angle, but she has a very vast wealth of experience. If you consider her pedigree in World Bank and other areas, even as Prime Minister, it is recorded in her favor that she used her position to fight corruption and also to stand up against, countries that is difficult to stand against in some certain dealings. So this how it pans out by next month when all the processes have gone through. But I wish her luck.
All right, then. We'll got your thoughts on that. Precious UDK Esquire, Port Harcourt-based legal practitioner and a member, Nigerian Bar Association, Port Harcourt branch. Great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, what are your thoughts on this?
First, I will have to congratulate our own Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala over the nomination. Nigeria has succeeded in sending a woman with a very towering reputation and credentials. and I'm sure that Egypt is intimidated. We congratulate one of our own. To me, reputation does count. The story of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala should be a lesson to the younger generation. She's been able to build a reputation for herself, and across the world order, she is recognized. So the younger generation definitely needs to learn a whole lot from her towering reputation and credentials and achievements. I congratulate Nigeria once again, and I wish her the very best in office by the time she succeeds.
All right, okay, we got your thoughts on that. Let's move on to another federal government to payroll and personnel information system, IPPIS. This is what this day says it has learned. It has also directed all ministries, departments, and agencies to compute and submit their personnel cost budgets for the 2021 financial year ahead of the planned submission of the next year's fiscal plan to the Parliament by September. The directive was conveyed in a 2021 personnel cost budget call circular, with reference number so-and-so, issued by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, and dated April 23rd, 2020. IPPIS is an information communications technology project initiated by the federal government to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of payroll administration of its MDAs. The federal government has been having a running battle with the Academic Staff Union of Universities over the union's insistence that its workers will not enroll on the IPPIS platform, which is compulsory for all public service workers. The circular, which they obtained yesterday, was copied to the Office of the Chief of Staff, to the President, Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, Office of the Vice President, Ministers, Ministries of Ministers of State, Ministers and Ministers of State, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Head of Civil Service of the Federation, Chairman of Commissions, and so on. Ahmed urged ministers, heads of extra ministerial departments, and accounting officers of MDAs who are saddled with the responsibility for the preparation and submission of personnel budgets of their respective MDAs to commence the process of preparing for the 2021 personnel cost budgets. Bottom line, if you are not captured by the IPPIS, they want to remove whatever funding should go towards that in the budget. So if you're not in, you're in. You're not in.
Well, I think that policy is just in tandem with what should obtain. Because if you are paying anybody and that particular person is supposed to have entered his name or their names into a certain program of government, certainly yours are not there, then you won't be paid. You are not captured. How can they put your whatever expenditure over? So for instance, let's project ASO now as the only culprit. Now, if ASO's name, their names are not there, certainly they could also approach the court to arbitrate on behalf of them. So I think government is just following the normal routine to remove their names in the budget, the expenditure in the budget, once they are not captured in the IPPIs.
All right, Manuel. 5 Face in a minute.
Yes, in the classroom where you have these lecturers, which majority of them are said not to have been captured in the IPPIS, you see a lecturer conduct exams and has a special envelope they call irregularity envelope. That is where they will put the script of those students that are caught cheating or doing one thing or the other. Because if an exam is conducted and everybody passes the exam, then something is wrong somewhere. So that is the kind of system you are seeing here now, playing out at the national level. The national government is trying to look at how to cut down on the budget. You can see they have reviewed this budget how many times. So they have seen an opening. So it is an express way for them to cut down on the cost of the next 2021 budget. So those who have not been captured, if they know what to do, they should better do it now. Otherwise, when that budget would have been passed and signed into law by the federal government, that means their family will remain hungry and their name are already in the irregularity envelope, which they do in the universities.
All right, we've got your thoughts on that. Obedimo.
Well, I want to think that the federal government is not working towards collapsing the educational system, especially at the tertiary level. You see, I think the threat is targeted at ASU. And I don't know why federal government cannot be strategic enough to think of something different and how to handle ASU. You see, the academic sector is a different sector together from the normal civil service setting. And you have to adopt the best international practice in dealing with them. Because what is the practice in other countries when it comes to the academic environment, especially teachers? Because there are schools that tap on the expertise of some professionals in other universities which they don't have for a particular course, to ensure that they put through their student through that course. And when you do this, you are pushing away professionals from that kind of exchange of program. I've said it here before. When you are within the academic sector, you will now know that there is what we call visiting professors, visiting lecturers.
And you know what? I think that the federal government definitely knows this. It'll be foolhardy to think they don't know this. For whatever reason, you said this is targeted at them. But if they go ahead and have a budget excluding them, what do you think will happen?
If they go ahead excluding them, they will collapse the university system.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that? Precious UDK?
I've had the privilege to say in this hallowed chamber that I totally support the advent of the IPPIS. I don't see any reason why ASU always decides to be confrontational in its approach to better working condition. First and foremost, the government is employer of labor in this instance, and the government decides the working condition for its employees. If ASU is not comfortable with what the federal government has implemented or is about to implement, there are very civilized ways of handling it. Staying away totally from the IPPIS without anything more is highly detrimental. You see, I once again would have to commend the federal government over this raging coronavirus pandemic. Government had to graciously approve payment for those lecturers and persons who were hitherto not captured, and they were all paid. It has shown a very high level of magnanimity and understanding. And I should think that ASU in its wisdom should comply with the directive of the federal government. What is really the hula baloo about the IPPIS? That, of course, we have all passed through. Okay, let me speak for myself. I've had the privilege to pass through the 4 walls of a university, and I know that oftentimes you see your lecturer not coming to lecture because he's engaged in another university, he's teaching here, he's taking salaries here, the same federal government paying them. So for whatever it is worth, I support the IPPIS. However, saying no budgeting for those institutions as a result of their failure to
be captured,
I think is an extreme action. My take on that should be that let those individual persons who fail to be captured be disciplined accordingly. Let the punishment not be generalized for the sake of the children in the higher institutions.
Yeah, I think there's some of them who have been captured. From what I understand, some were captured, not repaid.
You see, it's not much of a problem, as Fine Face put it. For instance, they didn't include their budget, them in the budget for 2021. And once ASU, should it choose this course, it heads to court, and then the court arbitrates in the end. It favors ASU, there can always be a supplementary budget.
All right. In any which case, this has really dragged for so long with us between ASU and the federal government. Like Obedima was saying, I wonder why both sides can't see a way through this. If ASU doesn't want IPPIS, federal government doesn't want anything else they suggest. So what happens at this point? I mean, surely at some point something must give. And why they're not understanding that is what baffles me. If you ask me, I would think, you know what, ASU go ahead and get on board. And once the irregularities show, which you already say are on that system, then you have enough grounds to drag them through the mud and say, look, you were supposed to have paid me 3 naira. I ended up getting 1 kobo. And these are the reasons why we didn't want to get. But now you're saying we're not even going to go on it. And I think that a lot of people are wondering why. That's a question we keep asking. You're employee of the government, so why don't you want to get on? Even though they say it's because they want to shortchange them. But there's no proof that this is the intention. And I'm thinking that why you need to join IPPIS is so that you can arm yourself with the proof as to how much the federal government wants to change you with the payments. And then with that, you can get the people or the courts behind you.
And what I want to add here is that we have gone beyond the stage and debate whether or not IPPS is good or is not good. The stage we are now from the news you read is that government is about to make provision for the payment of salaries for 2021. And based on what they have and what they have, remember they have tried to stop their salary before. They did not do it because they were still capturing and what have you. So I think it is time for them to key in, because I know how this country works. So the moment that budget is passed now, till 2022 before they can get this done. I think if they want to make changes out of this, we have many universities in this country. They should pass through the Labour Party, bring a presidential candidate, and we have a president from the university system, and we can make this change thereafter.
Federal government to exclude salaries of IPPIS and non-compliant workers from 2021 budget. That story is in this day newspaper. And then we have Nigeria records highest daily spike of 663 COVID-19 cases. Nigeria has recorded 663 new cases of COVID-19, representing the highest so far confirmed in a single day in the country. The figure rises the tally to 13,464. Announcing this Tuesday, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control said Lagos recorded 170 new cases, Ogun 108, Bauchi 69, Ebonyi 49, Edo 33, Rivers 30, Federal Capital Territory and Jigawa 26 each, Delta 20, Anambra 17, Gombe and Kano 16 each, Imo 15, Abia 14, Borno and Oyo 11 each, Plateau 8, Kebbi and Kaduna 6 each, Ondo 4, Nigeria and Katsina 2 each, while Osun, Ekiti and Kwara 1 each. It said Nigeria has recorded a total of 13,464 cases of COVID-19. So far, 4,206 persons have been discharged, while 365 have died. I will quickly note here, though, that I've noticed in recent times the figures coming from Kano and where was the other place that saw a spike earlier? I think it was Kebbi. Kano and Kebbi have been pretty much below 20. It's either I see 16, 15, sometimes 4, 3. I've been seeing that figure for a while. Meanwhile, recently,
COVID is having a...
well, it's not suspicion anyway. If the minister says that 60%...
No, at least for Emmanuel Ndu. The fact remains that if it can be done, because for instance, I know the running battle they've been having with Kogi State and all that you have somebody... You know, Ganduje and all that said they're understanding Bauchi State. Maybe truly that's on the other side that chloroquine is working out for them. But I tell you, the figure is so ridiculously low. I wouldn't know exactly why.
Well, this is the highest spike ever since we started with the issue of COVID-19. 600.
Getting to know the symptoms of COVID-19 and accessing the medical facilities to get tested. But I think that what the governments at the various levels in the country should do is to sensitize community people with these symptoms so that the moment they experience it, they quickly access the medical center. Now, we are talking about an area where you have high number of people dying, but the result is coming out very small. It means that sensitization is 3 positions as I yesterday, by today has gone